Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the WGLEU Season 2 for 2015 and 2016. My name is Mitch Leslie here, and it has been a long break for myself and my merry band of bandits here. We'll go through and say hello to everyone in just a moment. But of course, immediately to my left is Oliver Maxfield. I don't even know what you've been doing in the break, bro. I'm pretty sure you just had yourself chained to your desk and have just cried every day, waiting for the next season to start. But the time has finally come.
I've been in the Caribbean, mate, having some nice cocktails on the beach. I don't know if you can see, but I got a great tan right now in this beautiful weather in Cologne. But yeah, super excited to get the season underway. Second season this year. A lot of changes to come as well.
Absolutely. Things are going to be heating up and changing around a bit. We'll get onto that in just a second, but of course, no show opening will be complete without us welcoming and saying a big hello to our lovely social media host, Melly. Great to have you back. It's been a bit of a break for all of us here. I'm sure the excitement is palpable, though.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm so happy to be here, and I think it's going to be a great show with all the changes. It's going to be really exciting. It's like the first time we're trying this out for a season, and I bet it's going to be good.
Absolutely. Well, no doubt about it. And we've teased a little bit about the changes in the new format. Of course, you might have seen the news post up on the Wargaming website. But Oliver, walk us through this as well. We've changed the format. We've changed quite a few things in quite a big way. We're expecting some very different World of Tanks action this season. Yeah,
I think it is the first time we've ever seen the proper esports format for World of Tanks actually being featured with tier 10s. So we've kind of done away with the old tier 8s, you know, your T54 lightweights, your RU251s, that kind of thing. We've replaced it with just every single tier 10 tank, apart from the ones you can get in Clan Wars, you know, the special ones, your 907s, your M60s, your T22s, those kind of things. So that's the most important change, right? Tier 10. Of course, it's tier 10 now, so we've got to change the tier points. So instead of 754, we got 768. But the important thing is that there's no lower limit, so you can go below 768, you can go to 767 or whatever you want. So, you know, you can bring like a low tier 7 tank or whatever. You don't have that hard, you know, cap we had in 754. Changes to the way the maps work as well. First of all, we got Prokhorovka in, we got Cliff in, two of my favorite maps. Great to see them actually making a comeback after Season 5. Lakeville's actually going to be making a sad departure. I'm not going to be too sad about it going, to be honest. And Muravanka as well going to be joining us. So good to see those maps back in. We have 8 maps this season, and we're going to be seeing potentially 5 per match, because we got two rounds per map. 1 on attack, 1 on defense, moving on to the next map, 1 on attack, 1 on defense, and of course that tiebreaker round, that tiebreaker map if we so need it.
So we're seeing double the maps pretty much this time around. Before it was sort of 3 at maximum. We'd have 4 rounds, 2 attacking and 2 defensive rounds per map per team. So now that's being changed up as well. So a little bit more diverse in terms of the maps we're going to see, of course. The tank composition is going to change a lot. We do expect to see sort of, you know, the 6 tier 10s and thrown in the tier 8, or even the 5 tier 10s or 2 tier 9s. Kind of similar in the way we did see back when tier 8 was the maximum here. But this changes everything as well.
Yep.
These completely new tanks coming in, opening up for new strategies. The time limit's now been raised to 10 minutes as well, just to cater for, I guess, the pace of the game, maybe changing a bit. We don't expect it to slow down so much as just change in the focus, or at least in how a lot of these fights do play out. So those big tanks that you've been, you know, seeing in game, maybe if you play a fair bit, your IS-4s, your 62As, your Batchats, your big tier 10 arty as well, are all possibilities that we might see actually coming into things here. We don't know a heck of a lot about what teams are doing. You've obviously been jumping into a few team practice games and seeing what's going on. But here, of course, is our season results. Now, obviously, no one has anything because this is the first show of the season. But Oliver, there's a few new names in the mix. Tough Giraffes, Rusty Roster, Out of Range, Knackerbrot, and obviously a newly named Wombats on Tanks in the mix.
Yeah, so we got 4 new teams this season. You know, of course, very excited to see what they can do. Tough Giraffes just joined us a few weeks back in that open qualifier. So I'm really interested to see what they can do. I think they deserve to be in the season, because obviously they had that hard relegation match. Out of Range, I mean, Carmen's back in town.
God help us.
Not sure about that one, but I'm happy to see him back after so much success in other teams. It's good to see him back in the mix, and of course he's got a lot of good Polish players with him as well. Rusty Roster, again, a great Polish team. Could show us some great action. I mean, it's always good to see the Poles making an entrance again to the WGL after a little bit of a lapse last season. Let's see if they can do better this time around. Knackerbrot, and another old name, I have to say, Crooks, ex-Dragonborn's player, played in also Odin Mortis and Kazna Crew. A very volatile character, but also a good guy, and I think he's going to show us some of the most interesting matches there.
So new teams in the mix, new tanks as well to be selected, and the stage is set for what is sure to be a very interesting Season 2 here for 2015 and 2016. And now, of course, it is time to introduce you all to our first match of the night. It's going to be PENTA going up against Knackerbrot as well. Now, Penta had an interesting last season.
Yep.
They actually made it to the finals. We didn't really expect them to get there. I think they were in 6th, and it was through the playoffs that they actually managed to get through. They upset Knackerbrot as well, denying them the chance to play in those finals. And then, of course, many will remember those crazy games up against Team Supreme, the only team to beat them all season, and knocking them right out in the first game of the finals.
Yeah, it was absolute cracker, that first semi-finals. I mean, they kind of got destroyed in that finals match against Wombat on Tanks, then Virtus Pro. But I think they showed us some real flair, and you know they definitely beat the odds to actually make it to the finals in the first place. You said they beat Knackerbrot. No one ever thought they would actually be able to do that one. And they've just been getting better and better. I mean, they've been in 2 finals now, 3 finals now since season 4, and they've just been getting progressively better. They got some good talent in this season as well from Wusa, you know, your Vitaline, your Wet Lions, and of course your Desenichters and Vale from ASAP. So they got a kind of a bolstered roster. You know, they did a lot of testing with those players to make sure they can actually, you know, improve and you know, make their team potentially actually get those first places. You know, they're going to be going to WCA in December to play in China for a chance at glory as well.
So Penta already getting themselves geared up now for bigger and better horizons, I suppose. But at the moment, definitely these games for them in the WGL are very, very important as well, just to benchmark even what they're going to be bringing to things later on in the year on the international stage. And of course, their opponents, as you sort of foreshadowed earlier on, led by Crux, is Knackerbrot, who breezed honestly quite nicely through our relegation period. All of those 3 teams that we actually saw be at risk of relegation were knocked out and were beaten through that bracket. Obviously, we saw Wusa having another bite of the apple, having another crack, and they were sort of sent packing as well. So that's going to be interesting to see now how this team sort of transitions now into the WGLEU, especially with the tier 10 changes as well. It was everyone hit at the same time. They all had to sort of adapt at the same rate. What are your thoughts, I guess, on this team if we break it down a little bit more as we can see the roster down the bottom of the screen?
Well, I think it's a team of all-star players, very high-skilled aimers, basically, who can really just perform on an individual level. They've been under some pressure, you know, in Silver Series. They played in the relegation matches. Of course, you know, Out of Range was the top in Silver Series. That's the reason why they qualified straight through. But this team was just right there as well. Beat No Mercy to actually come into the season. That's how they qualified in season 2. So that's definitely no mean feat at all. But again, I think this is a very volatile set of players. I think, you know, Crux, very strict leader. He's going to go straight down the line, and I think if they can kind of just keep themselves tempered, they're going to be extremely, extremely strong.
It's quite an interesting mix, this team, actually. Largely German. Plus, obviously, Crux is from Slovakia. They've got Austrian in the mix there as well, some Swedish players. So very, very much, you know, a good collection of players from all over Europe. And it'll be interesting to see now how their power is brought to bear. As of course, we know what, I guess we know in some part what to expect from Penta. It's not a very changed lineup. I mean, Vale, as you did say, coming in from ASAP. But for the most part, a lot of those faces are there. You know, your Desenichters, your new multi-show, of course, the Dead Zone. Hacky are still at the helm. Fighterland, as you also pointed out, is there. So probably one of the least changed teams coming into this season, maybe with the exception of Wombats on Tanks or Virtus Pro. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how that one comes out. Obviously, 4 maps we're going to be playing here at least. The first one being Prohorovka, which we haven't seen at all last season. So straight away, we're getting hit with the new stuff.
Yeah, I had a chance to watch Prohorovka actually before the season, just to see what it would actually entail, and it hasn't changed too much since season 5. I mean, it plays pretty similarly. There's a lot of, you know, movements in the middle. You know, do you go over towards that right side where you go across the train tracks? How do you just navigate such an open map? And I think you'll be seeing some artillery, like we saw in 742 and 754 a little bit. Where you have, you know, a Lorraine 15551, very fast, very agile, very maneuverable, so you can actually get out of that open field at early stage, get across the tracks, get into some cover and do some good damage. Because I think you could have a situation that if a team decides to just sit around and camp, that artillery is going to nail you, that artillery is going to get you down very quickly. So I think 6 tier 10s, 1 tier 8, that artillery is going to be an option.
Excellent. Well, I do, before we get started with this first match, I know you're all looking forward to it, I do want to sort of tap into our only connection to the outside world here in the ESL studios. Of course, Melly, a lot of excitement surrounding this one. Already seeing the hashtag WGLEU being used quite prolifically. Everyone getting pumped for this one as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're all feeling the same, but how can people get involved with the conversation and what's going on this season?
Well, one way is definitely the way you mentioned, using the hashtag WGLEU over at Twitter. And the other way is our Facebook page, facebook.com/WGLEU, where you can get involved, send us messages, comment on stuff we post. We try to keep you updated with everything World of Tanks connected and relevant, and also participate in our vote, where you can vote for your favorite team, predict the exact scoreline in order to win bonus codes. There are 5 bonus codes on the line, because today we have to celebrate the start of season.
Excellent.
It's 5 per match. And so people get involved, head over to our Facebook page. The very first post on our timeline is where you can participate. And currently it's looking quite one-sided, to be honest. Do you want to guess, probably?
I'm going to say 90% Penta.
Yeah.
Ollie's already
75% Penta.
Cheating.
100.
100.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
Wow. Okay. So not many people putting too much stock in KB at this
no
stage.
one.
Well, no one knows who they are, so I mean,
no
they've got to
one,
they've got to get a reputation going before they can get some votes. I think that's how it works generally.
That's true.
I think it will change throughout the match. That's how it goes always. It always shifts towards the side.
The winning
of the
team,
team.
surprisingly.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah.
But, well, the earlier you get involved, the higher your chances are of winning, actually.
Right, well, you're exactly right as well. So maybe that one person might be putting in their vote for KB. But ladies and gentlemen, it's time to kick things off with our first match of the night. It's Knackerbrot going up against PENTA Sports, and the map is Prohorovka. Oliver, first time we're seeing this one all season. First game of the season, in fact. Knackerbrot going up against PENTA Sports. Now, I need to hear your first impressions here, of course, as we're heading into uncharted territory.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time we've ever seen a really a top-tier professional match because, you know, it just wasn't featured in a lot of times before that. None of the leagues have really started. So it's going to be interesting. Europe have got the first little inkling of what we can expect in the Wargaming League for 768. So you can see immediately PENTA Sports going to that right side, and Tarantula in a 251, he's playing that tier 8 tank, which we saw in 754 featured a lot, going over towards the train tracks, trying to get some early spots. So he's got a good amount of information. PENTA Sports didn't take him out, and well, I think they're going to pay for that slightly.
Notice the PENTA Sports here going with 2 Batchat at 25 tons here as well. So that tier 10 French medium tank, which has an incredible amount of damage output in a short space of time. Think 3090, only just a little bit bigger now. And you can see the Dead Zone, Vale and Fluky, all in those lighter tanks as well. The STB1 is that tier 10 Japanese now. And Dead Zone is moving forward as well. Bratty actually able to avoid a few shots coming in towards him. The Dead Zone already down to just over 1,000 health points here. You'll notice, of course, with tier 10 tanks means a lot more health. And here is that heavily armored core, of course, of Knackerbrot. 2 IS-70 for Crux and Fail, where they're bouncing quite a few shots already.
You can see how much damage is just going on to your Almighty Arter, I should say, and he does go down. So that's the massive DPM tank, the STB1 just being taken out on an early stage. You can see that tank is just a bit like paper, but you know, this is the thing in 768. It's going to be a higher skill game because you just can't auto-aim anymore. You have to go for those shots. You have to make the shots count. So I think it's going to change a lot of things. I don't think you'll see, you know, whitewashes once you lose that one tank anymore.
All right, again, Crux and Failware still holding on for the most part here, but they are surrounded. To the north is an STB1 and an Object 140, and to the south is Fighter Line in that IS-7. Bratty's going to push over towards the Dead Zone now. Should have at least a shot to finish him off with the Batchat. Now Paddy and Derzanista, they're having their own little fight, but Derzanista's being caught out as well. The STB1, not with a heck of a lot of armor at all, and Bratty easily going to be able to punch through in towards that tank. Knackerbrot looking quite strong right now, and Tarantula takes his own fight. The 2 251s are going head-to-head. Fighter Line here, limping his way forward. He is quite low. A new multi-show, in new multi-show fashion, really hasn't taken any damage yet, and he's just about to get towards the fight. Fluky really needs that help against these 2 big, heavy IS-7s.
Yeah, definitely is going to go down. It's actually quite a challenge to take down the IS-7. I think it's probably the hardest tank to actually kill. A lot of HP. It's got spaced armor on the side. It's very hard to deal with indeed. And you know, you can see that heat ammo as well having a huge negative effect on the way you penetrate the tanks, because if you hit those tracks, there's a very, very high chance that the tracks will just simply absorb the shell. So you got to bear in mind that heat is not a good thing in a lot of situations.
Now Paycat now just getting a lot of damage towards him, but Bratty also was helping out. It's a 3v3 situation here, and it's come a lot closer than it was earlier on. New multi-show's on reload, and it's a long reload. He must avoid Paycat. there is no way that he can bounce any shots in that bat chat against that 140 there as well. So he just has to stay safe. He should win this head-to-head though, really. He's got the health, and of course he's now got 5 shots to let rip. Paycat will be able to put one into the side of him here, but Multishow should have an easy time to pick that one off. Raging Potato goes down, but still, Fighting Lion and Multishow are still standing. That bat chat is going to be very, very important here for Penta. But of course, Knackerbrot have one of their own. That's Bratty in that one as well. Every shot from here on out counts, and that's a beautiful pick off there for Bratty. Fighting Lion hits the deck, and Multi is on his own.
Definitely a hard shot. You can only really penetrate the bottom lower glaciers of the IS-7, and with the bat chat's aim down time being extremely high, that's a very impressive shot from Bratty. He goes for paddle.
Paddy's going to be caught here as well. Multishow did have to stop. He couldn't really find that one on the move now, so we're going to have 2 bat chats going head-to-head. And notice that Multishow immediately started to reload. He knows he needs his entire clip to kill Bratty. These 2 tanks are even in health right now. They have 5 shots with a full clip to let go, so it's very, very important on who makes that first shot. Multishow doesn't want to be a casualty here. He's going to crest over that hill, get behind the little train, and hope that he can take this fight on his own. Bear in mind, Penta have to come forward and attack here. If time runs out, well, it would be Knackerbrot to get the win here. Multishow again, going to play a little bit of cat and mouse now as these 2 bat chats are the last 2 tanks standing. Not really much Multi can do about attacking forward now. Bratty does get the first shot towards him. These 2 tanks are firing on the move. This could be quite chaotic there. Back and forth stuff. Bratty keeps connecting though, and one more will enable him to take down Multishow. Knackerbrot, their entry into the WGL starts off well, taking that first round.
Yeah, Bratty definitely being the star player there for me. Impressive stuff from him in that bat chat. Very fast tank, very maneuverable, and he actually managed to get around to the best positions. Ballsy move to actually go 1 versus 1 against Multishow at the end in that situation, but you know, he definitely had the mass going for him. I mean, 1,800 damage is the potential you can do in that bat chat, and you know, he had slightly more than that in terms of HP, so he knew that as long as he connects the shell, he has the better chance against Multishow. And because Multishow was clearly reloading just at that last stage, or maybe wasn't in the situation to make the shell, Bratty, you know, managed to get those connections and take him down.
That's right, that first shot. When you've got a 1v1 between 2 bat chats is very, very important, especially how close their health was. And if you guys aren't aware of exactly what that tank is, it's an absolute beast, of course. Tier 10 French medium is still an autoloader, hits extremely hard, average on 340 or something close to that per shot, 390. So that's kind of gross. So hitting very, very hard.
I mean, just looking through the stats, 4.3k and 6 kills for Bratty. I mean, as a kind of statement as you go into a season, that's one hell of a statement to make. Not only basically crushing Penta single-handedly, but also going 1 versus 1 against Multishow. And you got to take into account Multishow got 5 kills and 3.4k damage in his bat chat. So I mean, just unbelievable stuff from those 2 players. And I actually expected Knackerbrot to lose, because that initial STB1 kill went in favor of Penta Sports. But, you know, I think these situations where you have those one-on-one plays, it's going to be a lot more common in 768 because of the way the game is much more about skill and individual plays as opposed to getting those team engagements, getting those team fights down to a T. It's
not as easy for teams to just sort of right-click and get the auto-aim and try and swing on through. You have to be a little bit more measured about the way you approach things. So now that first round is done, that means we actually already have a side swap straight away. Knackerbrot now moving to the attacking side, and Penta will be on defense here. So, I mean, we're only going to see 2 rounds here on Prohorovka. Can we deconstruct that a little bit there? I mean, a little bit hard to do, of course, with the way the team sort of went about it. Penta obviously just sort of shoving straight up there and trying to get tanks north and south of those IS-7s. Obviously, Knackerbrot coming in with a very strong core to their team, those 2 Russian heavy tanks. And they stayed around for quite some time, and it took a long time for Penta to really prioritize them or sort of wipe them off the map. Yeah,
I think Penta got some issues there with positioning, you know, playing around the railroads. You know, I think at the end, Bratty shouldn't have gone down. Who was it who went down in the IS-7? Vale, I think it was in the IS-7 who went down. But one of the players from Penta was just kind of in the middle of the map, not really achieving that much. And I think that caused problems for them. But, you know, Penta should have won that game at the end of the day. They got the initial kill. But again, we are still learning the meta for how 768 is actually going to play out in terms of the long term. So you can see Penta again choosing that right side. I mean, it's the same as we saw in 754. Once you have that southern side, it's harder to challenge for the middle.
I'll see the replay here. This is where Almighty Artur got caught out very early on. Shots coming now off the hill. So that was what you mentioned as well. Losing that STB really early on seems to have hurt Knackerbrot. They moved up towards, I guess, that crest or the train line and maybe weren't aware of, I guess, the tanks that Penta had set up on the hill.
Exactly. I mean, I'm not sure if it is in that. I think, you know, he thought he could just get across. But, you know, PENTA had some great positioning, some great damage on the hill. You know, new multi finally comes off. This is a great move here, taking down Crooks. You can see the problem there with the 140. Just splashing on the side of the IS-7 with that spaced armor. Again, I think heat ammo, people are, oh, why are you using gold ammo? Why, blah, blah, blah. But actually, heat is extremely weak. I mean, really is weak. Sometimes it's actually better to use just normal AP ammo, because if you're gonna you know, splash and damage or just absorb it, I mean, you just use AP and you have a better chance.
Exactly. The thing about heat as well is that it's almost halfway between AP and high explosive, oddly enough, and the way the shell is shaped as well at the top of it, it's supposed to, when it hits a slanted object, the shell is actually supposed to correct its trajectory once it hits it to shell normalization.
No normalization.
So, yeah, exactly. So basically what happened in this game as well, the shell normalization was changed from, I think, 5 to 10%, or was it the other way around? Maybe the other way around.
Yeah,
so the shell only corrects itself so much, and that's the best part about these heat shells as well, because they can do that. Obviously, they're explosive. We're going to jump into the game here anyway, but yeah, you got to be careful with those heat shells. You need to still be very, very careful where you fire them. And like you said, Ollie, you can't just auto-aim now. You really need to pick your shots. Knackerbrot obviously now on the attacking side here after getting that first round. And Bratty already making an initial scouting run here in the bat chat.
So that's the other thing we see. I mean, again, as I said, I don't think the tactics are going to change that much from 754. I mean, we were doing a similar tactic in 742 on this map as well. So going towards that left side, it's kind of TCM-esque style. You have that Lorraine 1551. And, you know, maybe Knackerbrot is aware that, well, you know, PENTA will be going hull down, so we can actually get some good damage early on with the Lorraine 1551. But Crooks going low. He's now one shot for every tank on PENTA Sports' side, apart from Raging Potato. So this is a good start, but he has got double, triple, quadruple bushes in front of him, so he should be safe for now as he makes those blind shots.
You're looking towards New Multi-Show there, who so far has been unscathed by this damage. And PENTA have just pretty much pushed up in a straight line on this map. They're really not allowing Knackerbrot any sort of entrance. And you'll notice that Knackerbrot haven't even really tried to use the hill side of the map. They're just pushed up on the left side, like you said, a la TCM. And working around that 1551 as well. There's no point going to the hill when you need to protect that artillery. Even Lorraine 1551 is quite a quick moving artillery, obviously of the French kind. They still want to be able to protect it. They still want to keep it with the team. And they're definitely prioritizing that one right now. Just trying to use this bat chat here in the middle of the map to do some spotting. You can see things here from the multi-show's perspective, although he might not be able to see all of these tanks. He's got a good vantage point here to lay down damage. And that's how he loves to play. He loves to sort of be that second line or that supporting player and do some damage from afar. But Bratty now's found Raging Potato. And this is a mismatch if I've ever seen one. The tier 8 RU251 is going to be outclassed by Bratty here. One shot should be enough, but will he risk rolling over to take it? Almighty Artur is going to get the job done himself.
Yeah, the thing is, you know, Raging Potato made a shot against the Almighty Artur. Artur just started reversing backwards, so Raging should have thought immediately, hey, look, they know where I am. Let's get out of this situation. But PENTA is going in to try and make it work for them.
The Deadstone paying dearly for that one there as Failware off the distance manages to catch him. He crests the hill to try and kill Almighty Artur, but now PENTA, they're just trying to focus down these tanks. Failware's a great target. He's a slowed, lumbering beast, that IS-7. He's well armored but weak from the back, and you can see a few shots coming in towards him as well. Fail not too far away. He might even try and get up close and find these shots here. You must surround and take out those IS-7s as a team. Going 1v1 against it is a bad idea. Now, Paddy and Paycat, they're going to be coming over here as that second line. Tarantula has opportunities to make shots now as PENTA is sort of grouped together on this defilade, and they're just not moving too far at all. So Paycat able just to hull over, take a cheeky little shot, and Bratty off in the corner as well from behind, doing good damage with his last shell there as well. Another 377 shaved off there, Zunista.
Yeah, if Knackerbrot can get good coordination here where Bratty, Paycat and Pada are doing enough pressure from each side, I think they might actually be able to win this one. But Vale is going for the gauge as Bratty is reloading.
He does know that there's no shells in the chamber for that bat chat, so he should be able to get the finish here as well. Vale waiting for his next reload here. It shouldn't be long. Bratty tries to get away, but Vitaline is there. Now Paycat and Paddy might want to push over here. I don't really know if that Lorraine's done enough work, but PENTA are definitely far behind in terms of health points. This is two very healthy Object 140s here as well. They've got pretty hard heads. Think 54 lightweights or T54 in themselves. That rounded turret, heavily angled as well, hard to hit towards, and Crux and Paycat are going to do some lovely brawling in those two. They're made for it, those tanks.
Yeah, but Vale, you know, he has a good position, but the thing is it only worked for so long, because once those two tanks decided to push in, there's actually a low damage HP deficit, and Vale left on his own.
He's going to get taken there by Paycat. It's just going to come from behind as well. Easy shot for him to finish off there. And that was a far more convincing result there for Knackerbrot. And in a game that only lasted for about 4 minutes, didn't seem like there was much messing around. Once PENTA decided to actually go in for the kill against that IS-7, or the STB it was, Almighty Artur, that seemed to be their undoing.
Yeah, I think, you know, they went for him. the dead zone just got crushed immediately, got taken down basically within the first few seconds of the engagement. But it seemed to me there was like just a not particularly good team synergy here. PENTA are not really engaging properly. You can see their new multi-show just deciding to stave off for a little bit, which allows the Mighty R2 to like maybe 800 more damage. The STB1, of course, the highest DPM medium tank in the game, one of the highest DPM tanks, full stop. And this position is a bit awkward. I mean, we've seen this engagement in 754 time and time again. This team, a team pushes in, they receive too much damage at the beginning, and you know, it just goes from bad to worse. And of course, the biggest problem here is how much bratty he does, how much pressure he puts onto the back of PENTA Sports. And you know, I think once Vale has to go and engage onto him, you have a situation where you have two full health 140s going against like a lower HP 2 or 3 tanks. One of them gets one shot, and then it's 2 versus 2. The 140s have more HP to play around with, and you got that Lorraine in the background for support.
Well, exactly. I mean, the Object 140s, they're coming in with 1,900 points of health, so definitely like a fairly decent amount to work with, and a 6.6 second reload, so they can really churn out those shots. But we highlighted Brady there as a player who is very important. Of course, when you're hitting on average 390 damage in a bat chat, you've got 5 shells to work with. You can let 2k go in one whole clip. That's a lot. That's another tank pretty much done and dusted there. So, you know, despite the fact he had to reload, no one was focusing down, so he had the easiest time of just putting shell after shell in towards PENTA Sports. We can see that Knackerbrot there as the attacking team. Interestingly enough, they were attacking that side. They allowed PENTA to come towards them, and they were favouring these Object 140s here as well. They like to do a little bit of brawling. Yeah. I always throw that back now to the 54 lightweights of yesteryear, I guess you could say, of course, what we saw in Season 1, where they were often used as that brawling tool. So think about it like that, a little bit better armoured, a little bit slower, but the same thing applies. And now, obviously, interesting to see what kind of impact the artillery made there as well. 1,600
damage. I mean, it's not a lot. And I don't think it actually played a significant role. I mean, you got 1,250 damage average on that Lorraine for 15551. So you're talking about maybe 3 or 4 shells connected, maybe a bit less. So not a massive role. I actually think it was more of a problem with PENTA's just communication coordination. I mean, you had Fluky doing 700 damage. You had Raging Potato 400, so you know those two just didn't perform.
Well, we'll have to see what happens next, of course, as we are now going to jump into our second map of this game. It's Ghost Town. All right, jumping into this one now as well. Things looking very, very different lineup-wise here. Knackerbrot are actually going with an FV215B and even bringing that big-headed ST1.
Yeah, so this is going to be pretty interesting. That Tier 9 Russian tank, I mean, it's great because it's got a lot of spaced armor and you can bounce a lot. I think that's the main objective here. T-54, just replacing what the T-54 lightweight did on Ghost Town, just kind of scout more of an agile, mobile counterpart to those big, heavy tanks you can see Knackerbrot are clearly favoring. 50Bs, E100s, Batchats, T30s, so basically the hardest hitters. I mean, the 50B is an absolute beast. Owned as 1,600 damage burst, but you're talking about a 25-second reload, so it can actually just bring the pain where it wants to. And, you know, paired with those E100s, you got the highest damage gun of a Tier 10 heavy tank, 750 average damage. It just is a lethal combination with the 50B. So I think if PENTA can kind of make that work for them, it's going to go very well. I mean, of course, you know, we saw this map between Na'Vi and Kazakuru at Continental Rumble, and we did see the heavier, bigger tanks actually working pretty effectively.
Like you said, this is a very heavy lineup here. As you said, PENTA with 2 E100s here to play with, and look at that thing right there. Vitaline driving one himself. That armor is thick, and it is angled nicely as well. Now, Vitaline, it's very, very hard to penetrate him from the front. You have to be careful where he angles his turret as well, not show any of those weaker spots or show any flat surfaces to the enemy. This double T30 lineup here as well. Actually, a tank destroyer, even though it has a moving turret, you'll notice just how slow that one is. Looks very much like the T32, but just packs far more of a punch, although it does look different. So, Paycat there might be caught in the ST1 there. Gets a lovely shot towards Raging Potato, but 795 damage shaved off him straight away. The dead zone missing a very important shot here, and you can see just how hard those T30s are hitting, much like the E100s as well. PENTA bringing the big guns here, Ollie.
Yeah, but they're just going to get spotted here, so great information for Knackerbrot, but I'm not sure if they're going to be able to stop this push, but there's actually nothing around that corner for PENTA to take down, so they got themselves in a little bit of an awkward situation. Maybe Knackerbrot will decide to go for those T30s. They are pretty vulnerable with the HP they have.
big chunk of damage they're taking off Raging Potato. It was a very cheeky poke around there from that IS-4. That was Artur, I think. No, he's pushing up there as well with Paddy as well. Those two heavies going to do a lot of work here, but Almighty Artur taking down very, very low. 1,500 taken off him, and look how much damage is being done here. Knackerbrot keeping themselves out in front here. 250Bs. That's a heck of a lot of burst damage coming out there as well. And you can see Crux just get absolutely hammered by those two. He will go down as well. Both of those 50Bs are going to reload here. And now Paddy chasing down the multi-show.
Yeah, the FE215B, amazing DPM from the tier 10 heavy tank. Probably the best DPM of every heavy tank in the game at tier 10, and it's truly fantastic, that British tank. But I know, I think PENTA Sports got themselves into an awkward situation where they have the lower ground, they have the great positions, and that might cost them here.
That's right. It's very, very close in terms of health points here. And Fighter Lion fancies himself a little bit of a go up against Bratty, but the burst is too good. Too many shots for that one there, and Failware also got involved. Derzenish is able to come around the back and take him out, but Fluky now is caught against Failware. He needs to use that armor well. He takes one big hit towards the side. That goes through the turret. He will be able to take down Failware, but Tarantula's on the higher ground in that tier 9, the T54. Beautiful tank it is, especially at this tier as well, and Paddy's going to push forward as well. Vale and Fluky are flanked out. They don't have the damage right now to put out. Vale only has 2 shells left in that 50B, and Derzenish is on the reload.
Yeah, but Vale's got such great penetration. He's actually using APCR on that 50B, obviously extremely high. It can cut through pretty much every tank, 2 versus 2, but clearly Knackerbrot have the HP.
Derzenish now fully loaded in. The 50Bs doing some serious work. There's 8 shells between them on full reload here, and it might be enough. They just have to let them go quickly. Unfortunately, Vale doesn't have his reloaded yet. He can't help out, and now Paddy's going to be pushing towards Derzenish. Tarantula takes a little bit more damage. One more shot from Derzenish, and he's going to back up. He needs to reload. Vale can step up here, sure enough, but he doesn't have much health. I don't even know if he can get rid of this whole clip. One shot towards Tarantula, and he's chasing down Derzenish here cleverly. Vale is caught. He's in deep trouble as Paddy just pushes around and demands his attention.
Yeah, the problem is those 50Bs in these 2 versus 2 situations, especially when they have the HP deficit, they just don't have the burst. I mean, again, 1.6k, it's not enough as long as the other team is aggressive.
50Bs going down now, and Knackerbrot, with only 973 points of health left, which is not much to be going on there, actually managed to get their 3rd win in a row. And you can see, there's definitely a feeling that all these teams are still finding their way a little bit in some of these rounds as well. Some interesting mistakes being made. Where do you think PENTA lost that one?
I think they pushed around that corner, expecting maybe to be a tank, which meant they had to go around and down, but maybe they were trying to actually cross off a player from Knackerbrot, which they did manage to take down Crux very early on. But the problem is they're just at a disadvantage when they're in the lower ground because they got the big, chunky, heavy tanks, which take a while to get back up and engage Knackerbrot, which meant Knacker could just make good shots from the top, really start to do the damage. And of course, you know, they lost these two tier 9 tanks straight away, the 2 tank destroyers, whereas Knacker still had that T54 of Tarantula at the end to just come around and really aid them.
Well, that is that there, and PENTA already down with a 3-round deficit. And I have to wonder, and I must ask the question of our viewers out there as well as Melly, the voting was heavily in favour of PENTA Sports. By heavily, I mean entirely.
Absolutely.
Melly, has that changed much since then?
Not that much, to be honest. It's 9% for Knackerbrot. Knackerbrot.
That's how you say it? I'm never going to be able to pronounce that properly, you know that.
Chat is going wild about not pronouncing it correct. I'm like,
I'm Australian, hello?
Please. They don't even know those letters with those dots and everything.
Umlauts.
Yeah. Yes.
Is it the plural? Like umlauts?
I don't know. What is it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay,
Probably,
the English
yeah.
version,
Umlauts,
probably,
yeah.
Umlauts.
It's plural.
In German, it's umlaute, but well.
Well, in English,
everyone
you just
can
put
speak.
S at the end of everything. Brilliant.
Yeah, this is simple freaking language.
Yeah, and you don't pronounce the dots and
Yeah.
lines and...
Yeah, no vague stuff like 2 dots. All
and
good.
I have no clue.
Hats.
So well. Hats, yes. And tails.
So,
Oh, wow.
Japanese building hats.
So, we'll bring it back here a little bit, guys. Thank you. Obviously, now we're going to be heading into our 4th round. The voting, interesting results there as well. Knackerbrot starting to make a bit of a resurgence here, but PENTA are struggling a bit. It's clear to see Knackerbrot maybe just feeling a little bit more comfortable here as well. That double T30, those 2 Tier 9 tank destroyers, they have the damage potential of those Tier 10s, but maybe they weren't used brilliantly here. We're going to jump in and see what our 4th round has for us here. If PENTA can actually get one on the board in just a moment. And I'll tell you what, it's probably a good time to start getting some rounds back.
Yeah, 3-0 down. I mean, the rounds have been pretty close, maybe apart from that second one. But... yeah, I think, you know, PENTA Sports, is a slow starting team. I saw one of their training against one of the Russian teams during the downtime between Continental Rumble and Season 2, and they lost every single round in a row, every single one. They were pretty close at some points, but they seem to lack that communication, that coordination, which worked for them so well in Season 1. And maybe that's just something which is affecting them. In 754, it was all about communication, and that deadly speed and synergy they had just isn't as effective when you need those one-on-one skills. And I think it's something they will have to work on as they go through. Now,
interesting enough here, it does look like PENTA, who are actually in the blue, guys. So we'll get those colours changed over for you for the next one. They're actually setting up in the old sort of format, actually, by the looks of things, the way we used to do it with those tier 8 tanks. The multi-show pushing himself on towards that one, starting to cap up. He's going to back out, though, as well as shots are actually coming in from Crux over in the distance. So it's a good cover and a good position there for Crux, who you'd think he's in no man's land, but he has some undulations, some defilators to protect himself and get hulled down at that 140. You can stay fairly safe for the most part. You can hear those E100s just booming out there as well. No one actually making connections here. The IS-4 with plenty of that lovely spaced armor, and that was a chance for Pad, Failware, and Paycat all to get across. They knew those E100s have a big reload time, and they use that to reposition.
Yeah, I mean, those E100s just on reload, and obviously with heat ammo just struggling to get through the front of that tank, only 330 penetration, but Tarantua doesn't expect that one from the side, and it's actually caught Knackerbrot unawares.
He's put himself in towards a Crucible here, a lot of damage going towards him, and the 50Bs are able to dispatch those targets very quickly, especially when they're working together. Fail pokes his head out, wasn't actually putting a shot towards Pattern, he probably could. He would have been able to take him off the table already. Instead, he's going to be able to stay alive for just that little bit longer. Fight to Line just trying to be literally a steel wall here right now in the way of those players. And New Multi-Show actually isn't on the cap right now. He's moving around. He's left the Dead Zone and Raging Potato to do it themselves. PENTA have given up a lot of ground here. They've given up a fair bit of health points, but it's still a close one. They might be able to bring this one back here as Crux will be pushed by New Multi-Show, and the autoloader of the Batchat is very, very hard to deal with on the 1v1.
I just don't think Knackerbrot can come back from this. It's still pretty close in terms of HP, and actually, Paddy taking down Vitline is a whole nother story, but Fluky is just holding keeping the home fires burning right now as the Dead Zone and Raging Potato are still in the cap.
Even in that E100, the shots are coming in very, very well from Knackerbrot, and they are just absolutely chunking him out. Fluky has to pick his target here, just try and get one more shot. He knows he's only got one more shot. He bounces it off the ST1. Did he get him? No, I'm not sure. I think I saw a bounce from maybe it was New Multi or something from behind.
He bounced the front of the turret there.
Wow, that's why they take that tank as well. It's got a huge head on it, and it's nice and angled on the sides as well. You have to pick your shots carefully. Now, the cap is still underway, and that's the Dead Zone really perpetrating that one here. Raging Potato and New Multi-Show all sticking together right now. Knackerbrot have the advantage of numbers here. They can come from multiple angles. Very, very nervous times here for PENTA as they await their opponents to actually make their move towards his cap.
Yeah, but both T30s are hull down, pretty healthy. Paddy is a one-shot, Pycat's a one-shot. Bratty's a 2-shot, and Failware's also a 2-shot to those T30s. Now, Failware's actually made a shell there, and the Dead Zone will be able to find the shell, but pretty big mistake for New Multi-Show, the highest HP tank on the team. He does some good damage, but not quite enough, I don't think.
Paddy's going to maybe come around the corner, maybe offer himself up here, or at least get some damage towards Raging Potato, but he is actually caught by a Failware. Second penetration from him in that corner, and he's been the man keeping his team in this now as the capture progress has been interrupted, and that's some big play right there. Earlier on, PENTA was sort of behind in things in terms of those health points, but now being brought back, of course, and they will manage to take it away. Knackerbrot, that is, have won it, using those two FV215Bs to great effect, and also Bratty just sneaking around the sides to get things done. 4-0, and PENTA are about to lose in straight games.
Yeah, straight sets, that's what you'd say in tennis. Yep. I mean, this is just going really badly for them. I think, this is one of those things which is going to stay the same in 768. If you don't manage to get that cap completed, you'll end up losing the game because you're putting resources towards the cap. The rest of your tanks get going forward to try and slow the other team down, and those tanks get taken down. And if you don't manage to cap, then you've lost tanks trying to slow the other team, and you're in a situation where you're at deficit in terms of HP. And I think it was pretty close. But I think New Multi-Show just peaks there. When you're playing a Batchat, you always want to be in a situation where you're coming from behind or the side. And yeah, I think just with the double E100 as well, clearly didn't work out for PENTA Sports. Only doing 2,200 damage and 1,700. And maybe it's a misplay as well from Vale at the beginning. When he took down that ST1, he just went forwards, and I think he should have gone backwards, relying on some pressure from the rest of his team to keep him safe.
Well, you see, as you said, new multi-show, you know, a tank that you prefer to see coming from the sides or coming in as a flanking, sort of a secondary line of attack, making himself a bit of a target there as well, being pushed on towards that cap first. Now, how much more riskier is it now in this new format for attacking teams to go straight for that cap at the start of the round instead of just softening up the enemy team and winning an advantage elsewhere first?
I think it's pretty similar. Again, I don't think the tactics are going to be that much different. I think the biggest difference in terms of why Knackerbrot is winning is because the individual play has been really good and they've been training like crazy, of course. And I just think DPM right now is king. You've seen every single time Knackerbrot bringing those STBs, bringing those FE215Bs, bringing the slightly more squishy tanks, but with the more hit points, and it's just carving through PENTA Sports. The two FEs there did 4.6k and 3.9k. I mean, the top damage dealers for Knackerbrot just with APCR just slicing through the E100s, and that's something you got to remember. When you got a 7 seconds reload for 390, 400 damage, it doesn't take you very long to do 2,500 damage, not at all. And also, you've got 105 penetration with Hesh. You can switch to that, and you can bang yourself through a bat chat very quickly.
Of course. Now I want to know, in your opinion, autoloaders. We talk about DPM. Now, autoloaders can burst off a lot of damage in a very short amount of time, but their damage per minute is not necessarily high. Sustained damage isn't necessarily extreme just because they have autoloaders. Do you think maybe that may even see a shift away from like these heavy autoloader-based compositions and go for the consistent damage, like your STB ones, for example?
I think so. I mean, personally, I prefer to play in team games. I prefer to play single shot tanks. I think if you're playing a random battle or something like that, an autoload is good because there's always a distraction. There's always some mistake by the other player. You can take advantage with your autoloader. But when you're talking about a lot more HP, a lot more armor, often autoloaders, they struggle, especially at the bat chat. I think with the very low aim down times. It's very hard to use. It's only good in close quarters. I think it's not really a time when you're going to go in and be able to take 2 or 3 tanks down like you did in 754. But then again, I think the 50B and the Batchat are good picks, and I think the reason why New Multishow picked that is because he's a 5100 player. Yep. He's an autoloader king basically. When you're looking outside of the WGL and the kind of tanks you like to pick in random battles. So I think it's more about bringing what the player likes as a tank as well.
We're very, very interesting to see if that's a trend that we can observe throughout the season, and maybe less of those autoloaders, less of the bat chats and all that kind of thing, and maybe a few more of those more consistent damage tanks. Of course, Russian mediums comes to mind, the Japanese medium in the STB1. There's a myriad of tanks that can be used maybe in big paradigm shifts perhaps on the horizon here. We have to see if these teams go for something a little bit different. The next map is going to be an interesting one. Of course, Cliff is just around the corner. Let's check it out, of course, with our map introduction video. Laughter. The first thing that stands out to me here as all these E50Ms, of course, coming out for Knackerbrot. What's the thinking here?
Well, the E50M, apart from the turret, it's very heavily armored. 2050 HP. It's got the most HP out of a medium tank so far. And the ramming damage is insane. I mean, you got 1,000 horsepower engine on that thing. You can just brutalize anything if you ram into it. I mean, even those heavy tanks. So it's extremely, extremely good on hills and getting into those situations. But it's going to be interesting if it's actually going to work here for Knackerbrot, because clearly, this is kind of a one-hit wonder tactic. All right,
so they do look like they want to brawl a little bit around this central rock, and this is exactly what we saw back when we used to see Cliff. If we think back to the grand finals, this was a big brawl map in the middle. Now, New Multi-Show, interestingly enough, not the best hull down tank. He's in there with that bat chat, but he's got himself up on the hill. He's dealing a bit of damage here as well, and you can see the big group of E50Ms grouped up here for Knackerbrot. Can they just sit here and jockey back and forth and take shots, or do they actually want to try and take the fight to PENTA head on?
I thought they were trying to get the fight head on. I mean, again, I'm a little bit surprised they're taking the E50s. For me, an E50 is a sniping tank, not a brawling tank. And I think if you're going to take the E50, you have to go for those ram damage. You have to go for the forward momentum. But it doesn't look like that. I think, PENTA Sports have kind of put the limp in Knackerbrot's walk, and it slowed them down for sure. But also, I'm pretty surprised that Penta's not picking the T62A. Of course, a lot more turret arm on that thing instead of the 140. But they are using the STP1s on that hill. Great gun depression there. So this is an interesting match full stop. But you can clearly see Penta Sports now 4K HP ahead of Knackerbrot.
Really winning out in these trades now. Obviously, spawning in from the north means that you have any sort of fast tank, you'll get to the hill first. That's just the way the map works. It's just that inherency that we also see in Mines, which is our next map, strangely enough. So they're there, they're set up here, and Knackerbrot have to respond to this. They can't just sit back and play like this because they're going to lose. Penta catching them out, and that's Derzanista actually gets pad off the map. The first casualty here for Knackerbrot, and it looks like there'll be a few to follow if things don't change quickly. Tarantula's trying to wrap around the side here. He's now at A3, just moving, C1, up on that map. And I don't really know what it's going to be jockeying back and forth. I don't really know what's going on there. Taking their time, of course, is Raging Potato looking for Tarantula. Should be able to get the finish here.
Yeah, this is good for Raging Potato. Of course, he was higher in HP at the beginning. Might actually go down here if KB can actually hit a shell against the side of that 251. No, he managed to get away. Now, this is going to be great for Raging Potato if he can wrap around, find another angle. But again, Penta Sports doing great work onto failware.
Okay, New Multi's just staying safe as well. He's got a fully loaded clip and he's just going to rock back and forth and let it rip there. Arturo does get on towards New Multi show there, but still Penta have so many tanks up to do so much damage with. Crux is a one-shot. Paycat's not too far away as well. And Almighty Arturo, he's in the mix up on that hill, but he is looking a lot worse for wear. Penta Sports are 5,000 health points in the lead, and that is 2.5 tanks, really, if you think about it, at the average HP that these have. So that is a huge, huge lead now. Arturo managing to, I guess, evade death for just the moment here. He's going to have to back off that hill. He's going to have to give some ground here as the dead zone and Derzanista. They move up. It's a shot towards the side of the dead zone. They'll be looking for Brady. They'll be looking to finish here as well, as Crux is a one-shot. Penta starting to get hungry for this one as the dead zone takes care of the captain of Knackerbrot.
Yeah, this is going to be a clean-up crew. I mean, 3 versus 4, 3 versus 5 even, and Penta so far ahead in terms of HP. Multi-Arta goes down, and Bratty on his own.
So Vale now just going to chase towards Paycat. He is also on his own. Knackerbrot being split and picked apart here by Penta Sports, who will get their first round win here on the defensive side of Cliff. And, well, they managed to not lose in straight games, at least, Oliver, here, but they're going to be on the other side of the next half, so anything could happen here from this point on. But they're looking dominant. They look like they have at least a fairly strong understanding of things here. Now, Knackerbrot, and I'm going to keep saying like that, guys, so I'm not German, so pronunciation's not going to be on point all night, but going with those E50Ms here, you said you'd like to see them more as a sniping tank, a tank that sort of eschews the front line for more of a safer firing position. Can you give any insight into exactly why they would go for this approach?
Well, I think it clearly didn't work. I mean, they just they didn't manage to get into what a position they wanted to do, and maybe they wanted to go aggressive. Maybe they expected or knew that Penta Sports would be doing a certain tactic. Penta didn't do it, caught them off guard, and the E50M just got crushed. Because they did look like they were a deer in the headlights there. They didn't have any clue really what to do. Yeah. And, once Penta Sports had the STP1s on the hill, those STP1s with a great DPM, great gun depression, just getting beautiful shots into the side of that E50, which is extremely, extremely vulnerable. It's completely flat. It's like a barn door. And, I think at this point, any wise person, any gambling man would say, it's very unlikely that Penta Sports is going to lose this game. And it's kind of cemented when Raging Potato takes care of Tarantula, so that 251 can't get shots from the side.
So for all intents and purposes, it looks like Penta there, purely on virtue of being at the hill and just having their tanks there, have actually been able to deal that blow towards Knackerbrot there. Didn't really seem like there's too much fight in them. I mean, what changes now? Of course, on the attacking side, they don't get another shot at this. That's the thing. Yep. If you fail your defense side, that's it. You failed your defense side. Now moving towards the attack, from what we can see, they're persisting with the E50Ms here to a similar degree. Same idea. They're starting from the north this time. So how does this work?
Well, maybe just KB likes the E50M. I think it's not too different, the north and south of Cliff. Of course, the big plus for the north side is that you can get into those hull down positions quicker. So you'll be seeing the hull down tanks featured more there. E50M, not a particularly strong hull down tank, like a lot of German tanks, definitely struggles. So this is going to be interesting. I mean, again, KB needs to go for aggression. They need to be going for those exchanges. And, maybe expecting, okay, Penta's not going to go hull down. So because we can get there quicker. But again, the E50M slow, big, chunky is going to struggle to get into positions quicker than Knackerbrot can do, than Penta Sports can do with their faster Russian/French tanks.
And perhaps Penta here are looking to exploit exactly this fact. Raging Potato is hooked around the side, and quite a large amount of Penta Sports force has gone for that 1 or 2 line. So they're not really trying to directly challenge that hill. They're actually give that away towards these E50Ms here, but they're going to come from behind what we like to call the donut here at F4 and work around that one there. Crux is already tracked early on, and a few shots are coming out. Vale is more than happy to jump down off the hill here. So Knackerbrot have been able to take this position here, and they're defending, so Penta will need to work around the side of him here.
This is an ideal situation, though, for Penta. I love being in the position where you can just shoot the side of the E50s, and when a team starts reacting to where Dozenichter and the dead zone are, that they're already in a dangerous situation because they are playing to the other team's tactic as opposed to doing what they want to do themselves. But this is interesting. Those E50M starting to surge forward. They got a lot of HP, but Penta is ready.
So the dead zone taking a fair bit of damage, though. He is the first focus of the fight. He's just going to try and roll back down on the hill as Fighterline puts a cheeky shot towards the side of Failware. They're looking to split one of those Penta tanks out and take him out, and that's pretty much what they've done now to the dead zone. But the damage is coming in still from Penta. They're not taking this one lying down. Pat goes down towards half health, even lower in fact now as Fluky is caught amongst a lot of those E50Ms. These steel walls just moving straight on in. It's very much back and forth, but Fighterline and New Multi-Show have arrived. They're trying to do some damage. Crux is their first target. They take him off the map. Fighterline is down to a one-shot. So is Fluky. This could get a little bit risky here, but Knackerbrot in the last 3 seconds have lost about 3k hit points, and things have turned again in Penta's favour.
Absolute carnage. Complete destruction by Penta Sports. You can see how much of a difference that STB1's better reload has. You can see how much the DPM comes into the equation, where the E50s are trying to get those last kills, last bit of damage onto Penta Sports, but the STB1 just has the reload, just managed to take him down, do great damage as well. And you have the New Multi-Show coming in very quickly off the hill with the Bat Chats and Dozenichter as well. And truly carnage from Penta. Great damage, great focus fire.
After a tough start to this one, Penta Sports coming up with 2 very convincing victories in these last 2 maps, and they surely will be happy with that result now, of course, as we do move towards our 4th map of this first match. It's going to be Mines, but, I mean, let's talk about this a little bit more as well. Now, if I'm not mistaken, those E50Ms, the way that the Germans actually made their turrets is actually by welding them together, and that I know they're not Schmalterm turrets exactly, but in that style. So they're quite angled and blocky, whereas the STB1s, for example, a lot of Russian turrets were forged all as one piece. So easier targets to break through. They don't really strike me as good brawling tanks. They don't have the hard heads like we saw from the 54 lightweights or now from the 62As of the Object 140. So why would you go in for this kind of fight? Why?
I mean, you could see at the beginning, KB was trying to get good rams. They took down the dead zone, but it wasn't quite enough damage. The E50M, great HP, great ramming potential, but it just wasn't enough to make a crucial striking blow against Penta Sports. You're right. I mean, the E50M are very weak in the turret, but you can still get penetrated from front, and the lower plate not great either. I just think, just not particularly great cliff showing. I mean, it looked to me like Knackerbrot had a plan and, was trying to be reactive and use the HP and the ramming and, all the E50's pluses, and just got outplayed by Penta Sports pretty decisively. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. That might work, and it might be a great tactic, but it just didn't work here.
Very, very interesting. I mean, KB may be hoping that they would run into Penta in the middle of the map. You saw them obviously put their tanks towards there early on in the match. So after not seeing any Penta there, it was all about plan B, and unfortunately plan B seemed to consist of just going forward and trying to take Penta by surprise. But pushing into a set play and a set lineup of tanks can be very, very difficult. Now, it's 4-2 in favour, of course, of Knackerbrot. I wonder now if the votes are swinging at all, because now people have had time to see these four rounds coming up for KB here. Penta getting a couple. Is it swinging back and forth like a pendulum, Melly, or fairly steady for Penta like it was before?
Not really. We started out 100% for Penta, then it switched over to 9% for Knackerbrot, and now it's on 19%. Well, after the 4th round, the vote closes, so the chances of handing in the predictions are over, and people at home can try. Well, the next time, second match will be up soonish, as it seems, or not. We don't know how Knackerbrot, if they will close it down or not. So people, as said, the next vote will be up soon. Get involved early.
Yep. pure and simple, get involved early. And you see those players that did get involved early for voting for Knackerbrot now actually might find themselves in a nice position with a little bit of gold to suit them if they do manage to get the victory here. Our fourth map of the night is going to be Mines here as these teams sort of start to get ready and prepare their tanks. First time we've obviously seen this now in 768 in this new format. I mean, anything surprised you so far from what we've seen tonight in terms of tank lineups being taken, or is it all seeming fairly consistent with the theory crafting that you've sort of put forward, I guess, when we started to see this season start?
No, I think I've seen the tanks I expected to see. I think now Mines will be seeing very much of the same, IS-4s, 140s. I mean, these are the tanks that work in Clan Wars. These are the tanks that work in Tier 10 random battles. These are the tanks that work on Rampage. So, I have all these, these different modes where it's still the principles of World of Tanks, where you either take a tank that's very good at a certain situation, or you take a tank that's decent at every situation. Sure. That's how it works at the end of the day. And I think the teams are sticking to that. 140, great DPM, very agile, very easy to use. IS-4, great turret armors like the IS-3, fantastic to use. Good side armor as well. You can reverse side scrape. You pick a tank. Also, how you feel comfortable. We've seen new multi-show basically exclusively pick up the Batchat, the autoloaders. That's why he's comfortable in it. We're going to be seeing the artillery for the second time. So we've had 6 rounds now, and artillery's been featured twice, which is great to see as well.
Well, this match is going to be loading in just a moment, and seeing some artillery, well, it did provide us some highlights last season. If you think back, of course, to the Penta versus Kazna game, where Clickapit really did earn his stripes. That was on the map of Mines, if you do recall, and there was some epic stuff between him and Killerfish. So let's see now how things work out on the new Mines in the 768 format. It's time to have a look a little bit closer at this map. We're into this one now in just a moment, Ollie, and some interesting stuff here. Penta Sports actually opting for a T110E5 for Fighty Lion, and the M40, M43 artillery for Raging Potato.
Yeah, I'm really looking for what Raging can do. Killerpit no longer in the lineup, clearly. At least he's not playing today. And, I think Raging is a decent player, but I like to see him in heavy tanks. He's definitely one of my favorite heavy tank players last season. But, he's going to have to connect the shells. And, Penta, they're aware that they can get the heal early on. They've got those those fast medium tanks, the 140s, the Batchats. So it's going to be about trying to keep Knackerbrot away from that F5, F6 area. And if they do go there, Raging Potato is going to be able to nail them time and time again. But KB is aware of that. They've gone to the defensive positions on this map, and they're just going to wait for Penta Sports to go forwards.
Now, if you guys recall last season, attacking teams often like to work from the hill and, of course, towards a side island there, D, E, and F1 respectively. This time, though, Penta seems to have just committed most of their forces to the hill. They're not really wanting to push off too far. They're setting up there for the moment. Maybe just trying to get an idea of exactly what Knackerbrot have with their defensive setup here. Now, most of these tier 10 tanks have close to 400 meters of view range, or 390. So, we're not having tanks with the same woes that the IS-3 sort of suffered, where they didn't actually have a great sort of view range, had to work around that. A lot of these sort of mediums have no issue spotting tanks out from a distance. And you can see exactly that now with Tarantula being pressured a little bit right in that back corner. He's been forced to just duck behind that building and through those trees as the dead zone spraying some blind fire here. But Penta, they have to be the ones to make the move here. They have to be decisive. As they just establish themselves on the hill here, it's not going to be enough to win them the round.
It's going to be a very systematic approach by Penta. They saw that Tarantula is going to be in the background with that E50. So Raging Potato is going to be able to splash that out. And I think, Knackerbrot is going to be careful that Raging Potato doesn't just go for the splash damage, because the M40, a big gun on that thing, I think 240 millimeters.
It's like a drain pipe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's basically a howitzer, and it can really just start splashing these kind of squishier tanks and any tank out of positions, a bit like the T92 can. So let's see if that one works. But 7 minutes and 41 seconds left on the clock. Penta have plenty of time to play around with, and Paddle does get spotted out in the Batchat. So it looks like Knackerbrot is kind of going for this quasi pushing forwards, staying backwards, maybe trying to get some spots, make sure that they know where Penta Sports is going to push from. And if it's going to be anything like 754, Penta will go for that right side.
Well, let's see now. You might be right here. A little bit of movement on towards the hill. You can see that via the mini-map, and Pat is just pretty much sitting behind here, staying safe. Not really able to gain much information here, as poking is quite risky. Fluky's trying to keep him under his thumb. Paddy hoping to maybe even spot out that M40, M43 in the background. Doesn't seem like he's seen him, though. He's going to back away here. Now, bear in mind, Knackerbrot don't have to make any big moves here. They're just trying to get an idea of exactly what PENTA are coming to the party with, as it were, and what they're trying to sort of concoct to throw in the face of KB. And you can see PENTA still themselves not quite sure. A few tanks now pulling back off the hill. You can see on the minimap it's still fighty line up on that hill on the T110E5. Really cool tank, that American Tier 10 heavy. You know, doesn't obviously boast the biggest armor or the biggest gun out of any of those Tier 10s really. It's a nice middle of the road heavy, I like to think, in a lot of those situations, and more maneuverable as well than some of its comparisons.
Yeah, definitely easy to play. Just a good all-rounder. Pretty big as well, so you can get good hull-down shots. You can peek over different crests on the hill. And, you know, very hard to penetrate from pretty much every angle. Slightly surprised we haven't seen the E3 yet, the T110 E3, the tank destroyer variant of the E5. Just an absolute brute, impossible to penetrate from the front, even with the premium ammo, basically, unless you do manage to get that left or right side of the frontal glaciers. So very hard indeed. But it seems to me that Knackerbrot's been spooked here. They've won the first 4 rounds in a row easily, and now they've started to lose, and they're going to play defensively. They're going to wait for PENTA Sports to go forward, hope they make mistakes, and capitalize on them if they can.
Fairware's going to spot the dead zone, pushing down, and PENTA now on the attack. They're going to move forward with these 3 tanks here. The dead zone just getting a little bit shaved off him now as Pad, he realizes he needs to get involved in this one as well. It's going to be a 3v3 on this side of the island here, and it's all going to be all about who hits those shots. Pad did manage to catch the dead zone by surprise. He gets tracked out in the open. That's a big play, but Pad takes so much damage. Great focus from PENTA over towards that bat chat, and now only 2 tanks left there up on the hill. It's Failware, and he's chilling there with Paycat. That's super good burst now coming out of these tanks. Focus fire is on point here. New multi-show actually even, no, it was fluky, sorry, bounces a shot off of that armor. Trade's going back and forth here. The dead zone is very, very low, but so is Failware. He's a one-shot, and Paycat has to defend him right now. So far, PENTA Sports losing out a little bit in terms of overall HP, but they're making the moves here as well on the hill. The fight is starting. Vale's going to be pushed here by Tarantula and Bratty. They're going to get aggressive towards a 215B, and Vale is not long for this world.
Yeah, just bad communication right now for PENTA. I mean, it should be Vale and Vitaline versus Bratty here. Vitaline finally getting into the game. I think a little bit too late. You can see KB are ahead in terms of HP, and the Conqueror in the background just doing so much work. And now, as well, KB have the hill.
Exactly right. Have the heal, and now they've made it even in tanks as well. It's just Dezernista and Raging Potato. They're the only full health tanks, and well, that artillery, from what we've seen, hasn't made a huge impact now. Almighty Artur has spent most of the game sitting in that one spot there, acting as a key pivot point for Knackerbrot, and just making the shots when he needs to, just like that one towards Dezernista. Just shaving more points of health off him. 4 minutes left in this one, so PENTA have a little bit of time to work, but they've got to regroup here. They've got to work with these 3 tanks, and Dezernista has to be careful, because if he tries to cross and join his team, he may be caught out. Knackerbrot, they're grouping up on the hill. They're getting ready to move. Tarantula is super low. He must be careful. The Crux still looking healthy. Almighty Artur as well. He's been sitting back this whole game. He's still full health. And Bratty also in that ST1, the Tier 9, looking pretty nice as himself.
It's all going to be about how much damage Raging Potato can do. He does a good shot there against Almighty Artur, but he needs to find one of these tanks. He needs to one-shot them if PENTA Sports really wants to have a chance in this game. KB have every single thing going for them. They've got the Conqueror in the background, pinning down 2 Tier 10 medium tanks. And they've got the hill in great positions, every single angle covered, and now they've got Raging Potato as well in the M40, M43.
Crux had actually crested over the hill, hoping to just spot that piece of artillery, and he does easily enough. Dispatches it now. 4v3 and PENTA running out of tanks here. The dead zone and New multi-show can't really move too far. Kind of damned if you do, or damned if you don't moment. It's Almighty Artur. We'll be watching him from the back corner. Bratty is also up on the hill. He can shoot across, but New multi-show is going to take his chances anyway. He manages to get across, largely unscathed. Must realize he hasn't been spotted. And Almighty Artur as well, as usual. Just back and forth movements here with 2 minutes and 45 seconds left on that clock. PENTA have to do a lot in a very short space of time.
Too much, I think. 1,000 HP deficit. New multi-show, though, he has got reload, so he might be able to find Tarantula, but, you know, Tarantula's supported by Crux and Bratty. And New multi-show does get spotted as he comes off that western island. Now, this is going to be a Dezernista New multi-show. The dead zone as well from the background providing support, kind of pincer movement. But 2 minutes and 20 seconds left on the clock, so not a lot of time. And I think KB just needs to sit tight and make sure they have the angles covered.
Well, even it looks like Amadi Artur is actually on the move. He wants to go for the dead zone. Ders and Ichter, and of course the new multi-show pushing on towards that hill, and Ders is going to miss that first shot. Bratty's off towards the side. Maybe they didn't really count on that ST1 being there, and now Penta realizing the full depth of their, I guess, transgression. They've moved into a trap here. Shots can come in from either side. Ders and Ichter at least gets on towards Tarantula, but he was a one shot already. Still guns in the game here for Knackerbrot. They've got 3. Up against the 3 of Penta Sports here. New multi-show has to bail down the hill. He has to leave Ders and Ister on his own here for the moment. Now it's a 2v1. Crux and Bratty. Ders can actually get the finish on Crux. One more shot will be enough here, and Bratty was actually kept out of that fight from the rock. He's going to try and block the shot here, but it's going to be a tough one to do. He does block it nicely. Perfect work from Bratty. Crux actually manages to bounce a shot from that side armor. The spaced armor, of course, in from the dead zone. But now Bratty's left on his own. This could actually turn around. Penta might have made it here.
Bratty's not really doing a great job. He could have taken down New Multishow. He failed against Zenichter a little bit, only blocking one shell. And now it's a 3 versus 1 situation. As you mentioned, the mighty Artur goes down, and Bratty in a very dire situation.
Bratty actually has to come forward there as well. A hit towards him as Dozenister now is going to get lined up in the perfect spot. Bratty will just easily look for a spot to finish him off, and he does, but he's gone quite low. He's still got 2 takes to deal with, and that's a shot towards the front of him here. Knackerbrot, they had this one in the palm of their hand, and Penta Sports are going to come through and crumble KB just like their namesake.
Absolutely unbelievable individual play. I loved the fact that the dead zone managed to take down the mighty Artur. I'm not exactly sure how much HP had left, but you know, he managed to keep him there. Numolcho, very clever move, just coming off that middle area, just going down, helping the dead zone, taking him out, knowing that, you know, it was massive mistakes made by both Bratty and Crux. The fact that they couldn't take down Dozenichter, and also Bratty missing that shell against Numolcho. If any of those 2 things, any of those 2 variables had changed slightly, Penta Sports would have definitely lost that game.
This is the first push here from Penta Sports where they really started to make things happen, and early shots towards failware were really good, and these 2 obviously E50s were caught out here, but I mean, it seemed like KB had it really in the bag. They had tank advantage, they had health point advantage as well. But that fight on towards the hill at the end, you know, this part here as well was important for Penta to start things off. And this is where it looked like it was heading south for the winner, where they push up on towards the hill. Penta now getting caught out. You can see the health point advantage there up the top. But it seems that those numbers don't mean so much now with these guns doing so much more damage.
Exactly. I mean, you make one mistake and the number makes no difference at all. You know, the DPM's insane. Every single statistic at tier 10 is just, you know, multiplied by many times compared to that it is at tier 8. So it's all about the individual play, and this is a really interesting thing. You know, the Mighty Artur is basically a 3-shot in this position. So, and the dead zone is a 2-shot. So technically, you know, this should be a win here for the Mighty Artur in a 1 versus 1 situation. But you can see he's already taken 2 shells, 1 via New Multishow, 1 via the dead zone, and New Multishow just comes off reload, just, you know, just a little over 2 seconds between shots in that bat chat. And you can see great work here by Dozenichter. Doesn't make hardly any mistakes, and managed to go 2 versus 1 until the rest of his team arrives.
He holds there so beautifully. Using that rock as well off to the left to shield him from Bratty for the most part of that fight. So, you know, in a very classical way that people try and take care of those 2v1 situations. Split it up into 2 1v1s, take it one piece at a time,
yep.
And Bratty is in a slow tank. The ST1 is not much of a dashing tank if I've ever seen one there. So he being put in a position where he couldn't contribute to the fight, took him a long time to actually correct his positioning and get there, and with Dozenichter being out of fire so frequently, well, we actually saw him able to get at least 1 takedown before that all happened. So, KB now must be talking about that one as well. A little bit of frustration. It was a game that they, by rights, by and large, at least should have had the win there as well. I mean, damage countbacks as well, looking pretty good there for a new multi-show, of course, who had a good game on that bat chat. So Penta now can defend here, which is interesting because this would be still match point for KB, don't get me wrong, but a loss here for KB would mean that we go to our final map, our tiebreaker.
Exactly. I mean, this is looking bad suddenly for KB. 768 is, you know, you make those mistakes, you get punished immediately. Just tiny mistakes by these 2 teams seems to make a big difference. And I think, you know, Penta Sports have got themselves back in this game for sure. I mean, they have a good chance now. KB have to go on the attack. I still think the attacking side is slightly easier, in my opinion, on this map, despite what the statistics said of 768. But you know, it's like losing a clutch situation. You know, in a position where you should win, you don't win. That causes so much friction within your team. I already said, you know, KB is potentially quite volatile. You know, this could be a slippery slope.
And like you said, you pointed out a few of those key members there as well are known to, have their own ways of dealing with frustrations here. So one can only hope, of course, that they do hold things together now. As it is crunch time for Penta. They've made good on their promise to bring things back here. They were 4-0 down, now 4-3, hoping to make it 4 each and go towards our tiebreaker map, which will incidentally be mines, by the way. So won't see any big changes here as well. But Penta can actually steal the win away. They're still in a position to do that. Let's jump in now, of course. Penta Sports here, going with the 2 IS-7s here for Vitaline and Vale. And a bunch of Object 140s, a Batchat's thrown in the mix, and a 54 lightweight here for Raging Potato.
Yeah, so, I mean, interesting that Penta's brought so many fast tanks. I mean, I think, a legit tactic would have been them just bringing the slightly heavier tanks, but it looks like KB, again, going pretty defensive. Both Batchats going forwards, maybe looking for some shots to the side of Penta as they do start to traverse up towards that hill. But double IS-7 from both teams, so, a good amount of armor, very hard to deal with. Great in those brawl situations, but Penta have the hill from the defensive side, and I think they knew they could get it as long as they, took those positions around the rock in case KB went up the hill.
Now, it's not uncommon to see sometimes at least defensive teams take the hill. Normally, the attacking team has the advantage getting there. So, what does this mean for Penta now? In terms of their defensive setup, how do they work away from here? Are they just happy to check the hill and leave it, or do they want to set up?
I think they want to set up around it. Of course, they still have to go for the engagement at the end of the day. But, you got the M40, M43 of Tarantula in the background. You can see KB have gone from a pretty aggressive team into a super defensive team. And I think this is going to be their downfall if they don't be careful. I think they should have challenged for the hill and gone straight for it. But I think, Penta Sports, they have a lot of options. And, just because they got on the hill doesn't mean they've committed 100% to it. Tarantula's going to have a hard time hitting anything because, there's nothing there for Knackerbrot to spot.
Knackerbrot, what they want to do before going towards the cap. We discussed the risk of, trying to cap before taking down enemy tanks and actually getting an advantage here. They'd be going in blind if they actually tried to go for that capture point right now, and they want to take some tanks out of the piece. And Penta are going to make that so much harder to do now with these defensive positions they've taken. They have the hill, they have the middle of the map. Knackerbrot have to work around the outside, poke and prod a little bit, probe towards the defenses of Penta Sports, and then make some sort of entry in, get some kills, and maybe even work towards a cap or try and go for complete annihilation here. It's not often that we're actually, I don't think we've yet tonight seen a win via capping out here, as most of these fights do sort of end themselves. Pad out wide here as well. He's headed right towards the south. Won't spot a whole lot here from what we can see. And, looking for the multi-shot, there's an issue in the back corner. I mean, KB expecting Penta to leave back a pivot tank. That K4, K5 spot has been used perennially through mines, even in the older formats. And the multi-show, here's no exception here, as he just holds in that position, not poking, not showing himself here. Penta have the leisure to wait to see what KB will do.
Yeah, so this game's pretty slow already. I mean, I think a viable tactic would be for KB just to go straight across that left side, because Penta are expecting a right side push. You can see the shots from the T-54s and the 140s towards the right side of that island, the southern side. And of course, with Knackerbrot having the artillery, they can see the shots, they can see the tracers coming out the end of that gun. So I'm not sure. I think this is going to be, an instinctual play by Knackerbrot. They don't have a lot of information. They just need to commit to something at the end of the day. They need to go for something. And, that's going to be either, what makes them really as a team that can actually come back from this pretty bad performance in the last 3 rounds and, be a team that can come back from deficits. But Penta Sports maybe slightly itchy to go forwards.
Looks like it.
Aware that, Knackerbrot are slightly thin on their lines. From north to south they have tanks. So maybe a concerted effort from Penta off that hill with that speed and with the cap underway. Penta's aware that KB is stretched thin. Something could work for them.
Knackerbrot looks like they're satisfied with their setup right now, and they've just snuck Crux on towards that cap to start things off. Bear in mind, the M40, M43 being piloted by Tarantula here from KB, so he'll be hoping to connect some seriously impactful shots here. But Crux will just keep this cap going right now, and I guess the rest of your team is set up here just to snipe at Penta or hope that they at least commit one tank to stopping this. They do have to, at some point, interrupt the process here for Crux, and that will be the move that Penta make, and that KB is sort of hoping for in this case here. Down to about a minute in cap time, nothing crazy, but they've rolled off the hill as well. You can see Penta now, they're moving. They've come off that hill. They're going to come back around from the south here and maybe try and get some shots on, sitting back at their base here. But that might open things up for KB to work onto the hill. There's only a couple tanks there. There's 2 IS-7s. Those big bruises, I guess you could say, for PENTA there. So let's see what the move's going to be.
Yeah, so they're going to go into a position where new multi-show is, and they're going to shoot straight down because they've got no artillery. I think that's their option. They're going to go for patter as well in that bat chat straight across, and that's going to get good shots onto the side of the I7 or Crooks. But you can see Knackerbrot have support from the island, but PENTA has the hill. So if KB are too slow to push up the hill and engage Veil and Failware, could go pretty badly.
Raging Potato is caught there. He does get tracked up, and that causes him to take yet another shot. He's going to move in as well. A lot of damage being taken by PENTA by and large here. Fight Your Line down to 136 points of health. This trap has been sprung nicely from Knackerbrot now. Crux was able to push off the cap. He doesn't care right now because those two IS-7s are getting a little bit endangered on the middle of that hill. One drops already. That's Fight Your Line hitting the deck. A new multi-show forced to come forward. Crux now garnering some attention, I guess, finally. He's just going to pull back in. Knackerbrot have a bit of an advantage. They have that one tank lead. They're taking a bit of damage here as well. You see Failware's trying to come forward with R2 and get some shots across towards the other side of the map here where PENTA had to commit to try and stop the progress of the cap. And yes, they did that. They took a lot of damage in response. An IS-7 off the map is always hard to deal with, especially with Raging Potato now going down. Only 5 tanks left for PENTA to work with, and Veil is looking worse for wear as well. He's trying to take the 1v1 up against Crux here, and it's not a bad idea. Crux has no support right now. No tanks can really fire from the back. Pat is hoping for a shot here, but most of the attention for Knackerbrot is on that hill. They might try and push over and around, and Veil could be in trouble in a few moments.
Yeah, but the biggest problem is Crux. I mean, he's been alive for so long. He was sitting in the cap. New Mulcho did a whole 5 shells against him in that bat chat. And you saw the 140 as well, just trying to pound him down. But this is the great thing about the I7. In an awkward position where he can side scrape or even at any kind of distance, impossible to deal with. And that's allowed the rest of Knackerbrot to egress across that hill and start to get good tactical positions with 3 minutes left.
They have good control of the map here as well, and plenty of targets being lit up here for Tarantula. Crux finally drops, and Veil will pay dearly for that one there, going down to 693 points himself. He's a 2-shot now at this point. Make that a 1-shot as the second shell comes thudding into the side of him. He and the dead zone are extremely low in health, whereas Knackerbrot, again, by and large, looking a little bit more vital at this stage, but bear in mind, these are the guys that need to come forward. They must attack. They can't sit back, because if time runs out and PENTA is still standing, any one tank, they will be the victors. So KB still looking to inflict further damage by the looks of things before they go for any sort of capture, just to ensure that they'll be able to win that engagement when it does, of course, invariably come. Right up in the back of the map, I guess, at the top of the screen, you can see those 2 Object 140s of Fluky and Desinista. They're grouped up together. Paycat wants to move forward here and actually pressure them. He has a little bit of backup behind him, so this strike force of mediums could be very, very important for Knackerbrot to open things right up.
And also looking to see if Tarantula can make a few shells here. As soon as Fluky Desinista are spotted, he has to be aiming towards that position.
There we go. Desinista taking a first bit of damage now as well. And PENTA finding themselves running out of time a little bit here. As Knackerbrot getting aggressive. Fluky going quite low, 906, being shaved off him as well. Focus fire is at a premium right now for KB, and that's exactly what they need to do. The cap again has begun. Fluky down to a 1-shot here. New multi-show is able to at least get a kill. Well, no, it was actually the dead zone took down Paycat, but now he's tracked. He's a bit low. And Knackerbrot is satisfied with that one. They're going to back away. Only 2 tanks left, and New Multi knows he is in deep trouble. He gets the finish on pad. Brady is on reload here as well, but so is New Multi-show. We know how that one's going to work out, but this fight here is interesting. Almighty Arturo up against the dead zone. Both low on health. Sub 600. First shot wins. It looks like Almighty Arturo will be able to get that one. Well, the dead zone has a slightly faster reload, and don't forget that, of course, in the Object 140, you can pump out a few more shots there. So with 172 points of health left, the cap is underway, and it's actually a care of Tarantula, who's getting it done over on the other side of the map. Now, Failware is low. Bratty is looking a little bit better here, so the dead zone, he might be in trouble, and so PENTA.
Yeah, this is game over. The dead zone just on his own. I think, you know, once Crooks had survived for so long, I think it was going to be always going to be Knackerbrot's game, and Bratty does take down the dead zone. The shot caller for PENTA Sports falling last, and finally Knackerbrot KB, you know, puts a win in the bag after, you know, going 4-0 up at the beginning, eventually winning 5-3.
Yeah, PENTA definitely didn't make it easy for them as well in the end there. Just a few of those little fights are so close. Bear in mind, the STV1 has an 8-second reload. The Object 140, 6.6 seconds. That's without crew perks and stuff like that. So, you know, the dead zone able to give his team a bit of spark of hope. But by that point, his team already taken down. Very well done by Knackerbrot. You've got to say, Oliver, their transition towards the northern side of the map to shake those 140s out of position was definitely a big catalyst in them taking that round away.
Yeah, for sure. I think, you know, PENTA Sports trying to go for the engage onto Crooks. I mean, they needed to react and take him down. But I think the biggest point was that Crooks just managed to reverse and get behind that rock before Penta could actually take him out, which meant that he was just impossible to deal with. You had Veil going forwards in his IS-7, eventually managed to kill him, but at that point, you already had, I think, the E50 on the hill of Penta. Is it an E50? I think it was an E50. But Vitae line actually in the I-7. Going forwards up the hill, he gets taken down very low before this engagement had even happened, which allows the 2 tanks that are sitting into C4 to push up the hill and get it under control. I mean, truly incredible stuff, and I think a really interesting move by Penta, maybe making the mistake of not picking artillery for that round.
Maybe. I mean, it could have worked out well, as it was a very static setup that Knackerbrot went with earlier on, and in fact, Tarantula was mostly used actually to try and get the cap out there as well. He did have some sort of impact in the game, I'd like to think, but we're not seeing them headline those artillery so much as we did before. About 1,000 damage, which is about the average of what we're seeing tonight, coming in from those artillery there. And well, that is that one there. First game of the night done. And Knackerbrot, on their debut entry towards this season, have actually taken down the 3rd place winners, the team that took down Team Supreme at last season's finals. It's going to be an interesting season, Ollie.
I think Penta's already had a bit of a wake-up call, but that's a good thing for them. I think they need that. They've been pretty slow into previous seasons. I mean, I looked at them in 754 in Season 1. Pre-season, how they played. They also lost every single training when I was watching them, and they ended up getting 2nd place. So, I mean, you know, KB, great start. They showed some weakness there. As soon as they started to lose, you know, some mistakes made on Cliff, they started to lose real quick, and it slipped away from them a little bit at the end. And maybe it actually took a mistake there from Penta Sports to go for that engagement, not manage to take down Crooks, lose too much HP on the hill for them to actually close that game, because otherwise I thought Penta would have just continued that run and actually won the whole thing.
Well, we'll have to see now as this season does shape up. But before we go to a break, we're going to head over towards Melly and see what's going on in your corner of the desk here. Sometimes it seems like we're so far apart, but we're bringing you into the circle. What's going on in cyberspace?
Well, people at home feared for a split second that KB is going to throw this match, but they somehow made it. Congratulations. After leading 4-0 and then dropping back to almost 4 even. That was a crazy ride, and that's what the community thought as well. And actually, overall, they loved the game. They seem to like the new format, and it feels like it adapts well. So,
yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I actually prefer this format so far, even in the trainings, than I did 754. I mean, I love the fact that we're changing maps so often. I think that's great.
That's true. That's true. It brings in a nice variety of landscapes into the game, and. Excuse me, it has to happen at some point. So it's the first show. Brilliant. Nice. Well, yeah, variety, always nice to see, dynamic. It's like, looks good, feels good, and I can't wait.
It's like Revels, you get a bit of everything.
Exactly, and I can't wait for a second match. And people tell me, how do you think about it? Use the hashtag WGLEU to tell us what's on your mind via Twitter, and also head over to our Facebook page where you can vote for the second match. And if I quickly refresh the voting results, no one has voted yes yet, as it seems. Oh, one single person. Thank you for getting involved that early, and it's for Out of Range. Carmen is also very confident about this one.
I'm pretty sure that was Carmen voting.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Carmen voting.
There's no doubt about it. We're never going to put that up to questions.
One of Carmen's minions is just voting there, I think, probably.
Probably, yes. But well, people get involved. The vote will close after the 4th round. That's a terrible word to say for me. Fourth.
Yeah.
Fourth.
Knackerbrot apparently is pretty bad for us. So.
Knackerbrot.
Yeah, that one.
Oh dear. Anyway.
Easy.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in just a moment here as we do head to our break. When we get back, of course, it's going to be Synergy going up against Carmen's team Out of Range. Let's see exactly what his new lineup of Polish Dynamos has got to show us. We'll be back soon.